Okay, so this is going to be the lab for the veins. The veins carry blood back towards the heart. They make a V in vein. And so this time, we're going to start at the bottom of the list and work backwards. Okay, let me see if this yellow is going to show up. Okay, so veins go back toward the heart. Again, the blue indicates low carbon dioxide or low oxygen and high carbon dioxide, which is carried in systemic veins and pulmonary arteries. All right, so we start here. You have the femoral vein, one on either side, and that gets blood from the popliteal veins in the calf, lower leg. The femoral vein is the one that can be removed by a physician or surgeon, rather, and they're going to do a coronary bypass, one or more. Veins develop where you need to drain blood back to the heart, and so do capillaries. So there's not always a specific set pattern or branching. So we use the area of the body that they're located more than the actual branching. So the femoral vein is going to come up to where it joins or converges with this little branch to become the external iliac vein. So external iliac vein, and that's going to unite or converge with the internal iliac vein to form the common iliac vein. The common iliac veins are going to converge to form the inferior vena cava, which is going to go up through the diaphragm or up through the abdominal cavity, passing through the diaphragm and going into the thoracic cavity and dumping into the right atrium. Okay. So, inferior vena cava, you have the renal veins coming out of the kidney, and then you should have another picture down here, and it's going to be the posterior side of that liver. There's a section of the inferior vena cava. So, section of the inferior vena cava. And then there's the two tubes. There's a purple, one of them going across. The bigger, darker one is the hepatic portal vein, and it's going to be right next to the common hepatic artery. Both of them go into or carry blood into the liver. The branching off of the hepatic portal vein is going to lead to some tiny branches called central veins, and they're at the middle of each lobule within the liver. Those are going to converge into two hepatic veins, and that's what we see here right before the diaphragm. So sorry, the dog's barking. The hepatic portal vein is down here by the liver next to the common hepatic artery. The hepatic veins are these two branches that come into the inferior vena cava. Okay, in the forearms, on this side, you see two radial veins rather than a single, two ulnar veins. So a single ulnar vein could exist in a single radial vein rather than two of them. They are going to end at that antecubital space, the bend in your elbow. And beyond that, it's the brachial vein up to this juncture. So even though there's two pieces and then they unite, it's still the brachial vein. Once you have this tributary joining, that's when it becomes the axillary vein. The axillary vein flows into the subclavian vein. So this would be the left subclavian vein, and this would be the right subclavian vein. So just like with the arteries, the subclavian veins, you have to distinguish between the left one and the right one. Coming down from the head, you have the external jugular vein. Internal jugular vein is the big one. Now, here it shows the external coming down out here. It doesn't always show up that way. Sometimes you have an external iliac or an external jugular vein and an internal jugular vein. And the internal jugular vein is going to converge with that subclavian vein. And okay. Okay, so internal jugular vein converging with the subclavian vein. The external jugular vein sometimes converges with the internal before it dumps or converges with the subclavian vein. All right. So there's two typical options. Now, you have the So you have the subclavian. This would be the right subclavian vein and the left subclavian vein. Once they unite with the internal jugular vein, then it's this would be the right brachiocephalic vein, and this would be the left brachiocephalic vein. the two brachiocephalic veins are going to converge to form the superior vena cava. Okay, so if we look at the models, we can see the internal jugular vein on either side. You can see a little bit of the left subclavian vein, and you can see the left brachiocephalic vein. In the superior vena cava, you can see the right subclavian vein, but not much of the right brachiocephalic vein. The axillary vein, the brachial vein, on the model, it only shows here we go, a single brachial vein and a single ulnar vein. In the abdomen, you have the inferior vena cava. There's one of the hepatic veins, renal vein, common iliac vein, the blue, common iliac vein. You can see a little bit of the internal iliac vein, external iliac vein, and then the external iliac vein extends to become the femoral vein. Okay, again, inferior vena cava, renal vein, common iliac vein, external iliac vein, internal iliac veins, inferior vena cava, renal vein, common iliac vein, blue. So here, oh, criminy. You can see part of the left subclavian vein and the distal end of the internal jugular vein, the left brachiocephalic vein, a little bit of the right brachiocephalic vein, the right subclavian vein, superior vena cava. Here is the inferior vena cava, a segment of it, and here's that hepatic portal vein, the darker one. Inferior vena cava, renal artery, or renal veins, common iliac veins, and then external iliac vein, internal jugular vein, a little bit of that right brachiocephalic vein, right subclavian vein, left subclavian vein, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, renal vein, common iliac vein, external iliac vein, again, inferior vena cava segment, hepatic portal vein, internal jugular vein, left brachiocephalic vein, right brachiocephalic vein, the distal end of that internal jugular, right subclavian vein, axillary vein, brachial vein, radial vein, ulnar vein, inferior vena cava. Yeah, this one doesn't show the hepatic veins. That other one did though. Renal vein, common iliac vein, external iliac vein, femoral vein. And so that's the veins. Again, blow them up, make them closer so you can see them. More clearly. Go back through them again. You can see those the same ones that we had. So those are the veins. Again, you'll need to identify these on the models and the plaques, just like with the arteries. And again, the veins go towards the heart. Arteries go away from the heart. And that's the end of the vein lab.